President Biden is taking a hard line on Chinese imports, charging a 100% tariff on electric vehicles. And that's just one product the administration is targeting.
After years of warning China, President Biden put his pen where his mouth is today, quadrupling the tariff on Chinese EVs from 25% to 100%.
But the White House argues China's unfair trade practices have been hurting manufacturing states like Michigan and Pennsylvania. Those happen to be swing states as well, but officials here insist these new tariffs have nothing to do with the fact that we're in an election year, Nora.
In 2024, China is experiencing a significant transformation and realignment across its industries. Several once prosperous sectors are now confronting grave challenges, with a forecast that 10 key industries might soon face collapse, potentially destabilizing the economy. The Chinese Communist Party has consistently promoted China as a leading market for electric vehicles. Despite this, the sector mirrors the precarious state of the real estate market, plagued by even more severe issues. According to Bloomberg, the rapid growth of China's electric vehicle market attracted a plethora of new firms. Yet, the removal of subsidies and the competition posed by international businesses have precipitated the bursting of the electric vehicle bubble. Over the past 3 years, around 75 new energy vehicle brands have disappeared, and it is anticipated that by 2025, 60 to 70% of existing brands might also vanish. To remain competitive, companies have resorted to aggressive price wars which have adversely affected startups and small to medium-sized manufacturers. By 2024, the competitive dynamics within China's new energy vehicle sector had fundamentally shifted. Notably, the concept of new quality productivity, strongly supported by Xi Jinping, is hailed by officials as the emerging lifeline for the Chinese economy, especially in sectors like electric vehicles. However, these industries account for less than 3% of the national economy, which makes them unreliable saviors in the post-pandemic economic recovery. The electric vehicle market is bracing for more rounds of price competition. Notably, the cost of lithium carbonate, essential for batteries, has plummeted from 400,000 yuan per ton last year to 100,000 yuan this year, prompting consumers to rethink their electric vehicle purchases. Over the next decade, the prices of electric vehicles are expected to drop further, potentially leading to buyer's remorse for those who purchased at higher prices. According to the 2024 Global Automotive Consumer Study, 22% of car owners regret buying pure electric vehicles in 2023, mainly due to the inconvenience of charging stations. Belgium's largest port, the Port of Brugge, currently hosts 365,000 parking spaces packed with imported vehicles, primarily electric cars from China. Similarly, Germany's Bremerhaven port, one of the world's largest car ports, is inundated with thousands of Chinese electric vehicles, leaving no room for German cars to be exported. Some of these Chinese vehicles have been stored for as long as 18 months, effectively becoming international automotive refugees. Despite this, roll-on roll-off ships loaded with Chinese brands such as Bide, Great Wall, Chery, and SAIC continue to pass through the Cape of Good Hope into the Atlantic, bound for Europe and raising significant concerns among Western nations. Interestingly, while the EU has yet to take decisive action, the United States has moved forward to significantly impact the fate of Chinese new energy vehicles. In the current U.S. political climate, where both parties compete to showcase their anti-communist stance, the White House has dramatically increased tariffs on 13 categories of Chinese products. Tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles have doubled to 100%, solar panel tariffs have risen to 50%, and tariffs on semiconductors have also increased to 50%. Furthermore, tariffs on lithium-ion batteries have more than doubled to 25%, and medical syringes have seen an increase from 0% to 50%, along with other medical products. The Biden administration's actions are driven by the upcoming elections and the desire to set a standard for Europe, which is likely to follow suit. Last September and October, the EU launched anti-dumping and anti-subsidy investigations into Chinese new energy vehicles. The EU is expected to impose preliminary tariffs ranging from 15% to 30% on these vehicles as soon as this month. Considering the ongoing investigation, additional anti-dumping duties could range from 35% to 70%. Foreign authorities estimate that a 55% tariff increase would make Biden's operations in the EU unprofitable. Following this trend, the EU is anticipated to push Chinese new energy vehicles out of its market this year. From January to April, China exported over 1 million new energy vehicles overseas, but those destined for Europe have struggled to sell, accumulating at ports and incurring substantial storage fees. Additionally, the safety risks of storing lithium batteries used in new energy vehicles near coastal areas for extended periods cannot be ignored. However, automakers like BYD, Great Wall, Chery, and Xi'an continue to export cars to Europe to keep their factories operational. Why do these Chinese automakers persist despite the challenges? They receive significant subsidies and tax rebates. Local governments provide financial support as soon as the electric vehicles roll off the production line. Once the vehicles are shipped from ports, companies can claim export tax rebates with bank settlement receipts. EU investigation results show that in the first 3 quarters of last year, BYD exported 145,000 new energy vehicles, receiving government subsidies totaling 2.7 billion yen, averaging 19,000 yen per vehicle. Data from Shenzhen Customs and the Shenzhen Transportation Bureau indicate that each exported new energy vehicle can also receive an export tax rebate of 36,000 yen. Additionally, new energy vehicles receive various other subsidies from different levels of government, further incentivizing their export. China's government reportedly spends about 70,000 yen subsidizing each new energy vehicle, a figure that can reach as high as $10,000 per vehicle. This heavy subsidization of electric vehicles, EVs, solar photovoltaic products, and lithium-ion batteries raises questions about the underlying motives and the aggressive response from the EU and the US. The reasons for these actions run deep. In 2023, China's total foreign trade exports were valued at $3.38 trillion USD, including nearly 1.6 million new energy vehicles worth $42 billion, photovoltaic silicon exports worth $4.8 billion, and lithium-ion battery exports valued at $65 billion. Combined, these 3 categories accounted for approximately $112 billion, or merely 3% of China's total export value. Clearly, relying solely on these sectors to bolster foreign trade exports is unfeasible. China's strategic investment in these industries is intended to disrupt the industrial systems of Europe and America. Electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and solar energy share several characteristics. They are technologically accessible, capital-intensive, and potentially environmentally impactful. Establishing production lines for these industries in Western countries typically requires strict environmental assessments and high compliance costs. In contrast, China has heavily invested in developing these industries, aiming to make them as indispensable as the steel industry and thereby control the global supply chain, constraining Western economies. Consequently, China continues to advocate for climate trade agreements like the Paris Agreement. However, this strategy has encountered significant challenges. After Germany and France ended consumer car purchase subsidies, BYD only sold 393 units in Germany last year. In the first quarter of this year, Great Wall Motors sold 565 units, Lynk Co. sold 7 units, NIO sold 102 units, and Airways sold only 1 unit. Additionally, European countries are shifting away from new energy vehicles, favoring hybrid vehicles instead. The US and Japan are leading this transition, with BMW initially planning to shift to electric vehicles by 2025, but now postponing to 2030. This deliberate move to discourage electric car purchases signals a global resistance against China. Elon Musk's Tesla might also face challenges as the US, Japan, and Europe develop new solid-state batteries. Once these are completed, Musk's alignment with China could lead to a decline in influence, highlighting the risks of close ties with China. The Alliance for American Manufacturing has warned that an influx of cheap Chinese electric vehicles could devastate the U.S. automotive industry, which constitutes 3% of the GDP. If the newly imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese exports prove insufficient, future U.S. measures could see tariffs rise to 150% or even 200%. Senator Sherrod Brown from Ohio has urged President Biden that tariffs alone are insufficient, and that Chinese electric vehicles should be banned from entering the U.S. market. Observing that European ports can no longer store these vehicles, it is expected that China's electric vehicle exports to Europe will decrease significantly, as evidenced by a 4.8% drop in exports to the EU from January to April this year. In April 2024, Mexico made a significant move affecting the pathway for manufacturing new energy vehicles intended for export to the United States. During discussions with Biden, high-ranking Mexican officials declared that the government would no longer extend preferential policies to Chinese automotive companies and would cease negotiations with Chinese-funded enterprises. On April 22, Mexico enacted a new decree that abolished tariff preferences for Chinese electric vehicles. As a result, companies like Biden can no longer utilize Mexico as a gateway to the U.S. market and now face tariffs as high as 27.5%, equivalent to direct exports to the United States. China's inability to circumvent these new tariffs through separate trade agreements is due to its lack of internationally recognized market economy status. According to the USMCA agreement, any country lacking market economy status must obtain US approval before forming any agreements with Mexico. Recently, the Chinese Communist Party CCP has been promoting a new trio of exports: electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and solar cells. However, these efforts have faltered against the formidable economic defenses of the US and other Western nations, isolating China in international markets. The CCP's strategy has been to reduce costs and provide substantial subsidies in an attempt to penetrate Western markets and undermine Western industries. In support of these tactics, China issued 1 trillion yuan in 50-year government bonds, essentially funding subsidies and economic warfare against the West. Regardless of the severity of Western tariffs, whether 100%, 300%, or even 400%, the CCP continues its aggressive economic approach. By outcompeting Western companies in price wars and potentially declaring bankruptcy afterward, China aims to devastate Western industries, leaving no recourse for affected businesses. Over the past few decades, American automakers have tried to penetrate the Chinese market by establishing joint ventures. However, brands like Ford and General Motors have experienced poor sales in China, with only Cadillac and the Buick GL8 model achieving modest success. In the new energy vehicle sector, heavily supported by the Chinese government, foreign firms are prohibited from holding majority stakes, illustrating China's exclusionary policies towards foreign automotive companies. In the US, there is widespread recognition of the threat posed by Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers, from Detroit workers to vehicle manufacturers. This has led to significant support for increased tariffs, seen as essential for the development of the U.S. automotive industry. Despite some opposition from Wall Street, the government's resolve remains strong. China's rapid development of its new energy vehicle industry has been fueled by unfair practices aimed at gaining a competitive edge. Reports suggest the CCP has placed spies within Tesla to steal trade secrets, including comprehensive details of Tesla's supply chains and core component sources. Using these methods, Chinese companies can quickly launch highly competitive new energy vehicle models, heavily subsidized by the CCP. Beyond the automotive industry, China's photovoltaic industry has seen massive investment, leading to severe market oversupply and plummeting prices. This has forced companies to sell products below production costs, resulting in significant financial losses and layoffs. The European Union has also investigated Chinese photovoltaic companies for receiving government subsidies. Even within BRICS nations, trade disputes with China have increased. India, for example, has launched numerous anti-dumping investigations against Chinese products, while Brazil faces pressure from its steel industry to raise tariffs on Chinese steel imports. The United States has also taken measures to protect its industries, such as imposing additional taxes on the steel industry and funding clean manufacturing projects. China's economic challenges are compounded by inadequate domestic demand. The CCP's focus on investment and export-led growth has led to a neglect of structural reforms needed to boost consumer spending. The increasing cost of living and rising public discontent pose severe challenges to the CCP's governance. Meanwhile, the excessive promotion of electric vehicles at the expense of developing combustion engine technology could weaken China's industrial foundation in critical sectors like aviation and military manufacturing. If internal and external pressures continue to mount, the CCP's regime could face significant instability, either due to rising public discontent or in military confrontations with the West. The CCP's aggressive industrial policies and strategic missteps might ultimately jeopardize China's long-term economic and geopolitical stability. Moreover, just as the Chinese real estate market seemed to be stabilizing, a new downturn in property prices commenced. Data from Cha.com's research center indicates a sluggish trend in the second-hand housing market across 100 major cities as of March 2024. Prices of second-hand residential properties are on a steep decline, with the traditional peak sales period in March and April non-existent in markets like Shanghai. The second-hand market is particularly bleak, with properties selling at 5% to 10% below the market price, a desperate measure to attract buyers. In central districts like Xintiandi and Xi'an, only a handful of properties have been sold since the new year, underscoring the dire straits of the market and the real estate agents struggling to survive. Numerous homeowners are clinging to the hope of market revival or easing of policies, anticipating that an influx of buyers from different regions will elevate property prices. Despite these expectations, the reality is bleak, particularly in Beijing's housing market. In Wanliu, a highly regarded area of Beijing, the market is characterized by an oversupply, significantly burdening sellers. This month, several second-hand houses were listed across various communities, yet many did not attract a single potential buyer. The inventory of second-hand homes in Beijing has surged to an all-time high, with over 180,000 units listed, and yet buyer interest remains scant. Buyers are holding back, waiting for further price reductions, resulting in a stagnant sales environment. The downturn is particularly pronounced in third- and fourth-tier cities, which are visibly struggling, while second-tier cities have faced the most significant downturns across various metrics. Many real estate agents note that although buyer demand persists, the uncertainty surrounding policies has led most to adopt a cautious wait-and-see approach. In Shanghai, second-hand residential transactions have fallen for 5 consecutive months, with a 4% drop in transaction prices. In Shenzhen, the volume of second-hand transactions has plummeted by 45% year-over-year. Despite the popularity of first-time homebuyer projects in cities like Beijing, overall transaction numbers are low as buyers continue to hesitate. National statistics for January and February indicate a more than 20% year-over-year decline in both the sales area and volume of real estate, a starker contrast to the 8.85% decline recorded in 2022, signaling a particularly slow start to 2024. First-tier cities are under pressure to implement more lenient policies to stimulate the market. The school district housing market, once a thriving sector in China's major first-tier cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou, has recently faced unprecedented turbulence. In Beijing, properties in once coveted school districts like Wanliu have seen dramatic price reductions, with a 44-square-meter house dropping by 3 million yuan from its peak, now valued at just over 6 million yuan. This decline has left many parents distraught. Similarly, in Shanghai, prices in school districts like Garden have halved from 90,100,000 yuan per square meter to 49,000 yuan, reflecting a decrease of 2.05 million yuan. In Shenzhen, prices in some popular school districts have also dropped by up to 50%. This turmoil stems from several factors: decreasing student enrollments and a shift towards more equitable educational opportunities are reducing the perceived value of school district properties. As education becomes more accessible, the premium on school district housing is likely to diminish, making these properties revert to their primary residential function. Moreover, the high costs associated with securing a place in a good school, coupled with the modest salaries that many parents earn, render the investment-return ratio unappeasable for ordinary families, further contributing to the decline in the school district housing market. This year, the economic downturn has curbed the demand for school district houses and gold jewelry. As a hedge against the economic climate, many are turning to gold, which offers the dual advantage of value preservation and wearability, causing a spike in gold purchases. Shockingly, on May 7, 2024, the retail price of gold at Chow Tai Fook reached 713 yuan per gram, with processing fees pushing the total to 813 yuan per gram, although its recycling value remained around 500 yuan per gram. Wholesale channels offered it slightly cheaper at 580 yuan per gram, demonstrating a substantial markup over the recycling price. This situation has led some to deem buying gold now as a poor financial decision. Moreover, a customer in Shanghai found that the purity of their gold dropped from over 99% pre-melt to between 93% and 96% post-melt, further complicating the recycling process. In the past week, gold prices dropped by 17%, with brands like Chow Tai Fook and China Gold lowering their prices to just over 500 yuan per gram. Despite recent reductions, gold remains expensive. The People's Bank of China has reduced its gold reserves for 17 months straight, indicating potential vulnerabilities in the gold market. High gold prices, unusual in the context of rising U.S. real interest rates, typically suppress gold values, hinting at a possible reversal of this trend unless a broader economic crisis emerges. Turning to the diamond industry, it's facing a downturn with the market value of China's diamond products dropping by 27% last year to about 60 billion yuan. The decline reflects a broader disinterest even in traditionally marketed products like school district houses, where each person could customize a ring with their ID. This strategy has not resonated well recently, contributing to a significant slump in diamond sales. In the jade and gemstone sectors, despite an increased appreciation for jade, the market is plagued by inflated prices and counterfeit products, leading to consumer mistrust. This, coupled with the economic impacts of the pandemic, has dampened demand for luxury goods, further challenging the jewelry market. The liquor industry, too, reflects these economic pressures. Mutai, for instance, has seen a dramatic price drop, causing concern among distributors as prices fell below a critical threshold. This decline in high-end liquor sales is indicative of broader consumer caution amidst economic uncertainty. Moreover, major cosmetic brands, once symbols of luxury and success, are facing store closures across China due to a shift towards more cost-effective consumer choices. The smartphone market is also feeling the pinch, with Apple's sales dropping significantly as consumers prioritize essential expenditures over luxury electronics. In the tea market, sales have plummeted, with economic challenges and increased market transparency reducing profitability. Stockpiles of unsold tea are growing, suggesting a sustained period of market difficulties unless economic conditions improve. These industry downturns reflect broader socioeconomic challenges in China, spotlighting the urgent need for strategic responses at the upcoming 20th CPC Central Committee session. The scale of these economic challenges, as outlined by scholars, points to potential social and political instability, underscoring the importance of addressing these issues promptly.